Hey guys, hope you're both doing
Hey,
well.
Stefan.
Hi.
Hello.
We really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was so charming. I'm going to start by asking how well you guys kind of knew each other before this kind of project and where this kind of friendship of yours began.
We must be good actors, Colm.
Yeah.
We never met. We had never met till day one of this. Um,
I got the script couple of years before we shot it and loved it. And Paul and I had texted each other and had a few phone conversations over the years it took to set it up. But we'd never met. And until the week we started shooting, we had a pint of Guinness in a bar in the Westbury Hotel in Dublin, and that was we just hit it off. It was great.
but it was I had there were so many stops and starts till we finally got to make it. And I was a little superstitious, a little cautious. I said, you know what? I'm sure he's going to be there, but until I see Colm and a pint of Guinness in front of him, I'm not going to believe it. So we sat. I was like, okay, it's happening. And then we sat and we just, hit it off immediately. And we weren't not talking about the movie. We were just talking books and politics and stuff. And then we had a table read. Was the first time we heard it all together. And several of the cast goes, "Oh, so you and Colm have obviously done a lot of things together." I went, "No, we just met." But it's written, as it's such a fun tennis match, and it's a two-hander. And we both, as actors, we both kind of really enjoyed getting into the fun of I like you, but I don't trust you. We don't trust. And that's just a lot of fun to play.
Mm. So Paul, how did that first Guinness and Ireland taste? Is it better than you get it
Pretty,
elsewhere?
yeah, yeah. I don't know why. Colm introduced me to a phrase that I was not familiar with. He said, "Oh, well, we'll go to that pub. They pour a good pint." I went, "What do you mean? It's the same shit?" No, it's not. Every pub, because whatever they do is different. So, yeah, you get it in a good place and it's unbelievable. And you can drink four of them and you don't.
Like everything in Ireland, Guinness is a very delicate liquid. It depends on how they clean their pipes, the tubes from the barrel to the tap. It depends on the temperature they keep it at. It depends a lot of things like that, and that's why it never tastes. I never drink Guinness off the island of Ireland. It's a waste of time. Uh, and My brother and I, my younger brother and I, used to actually. There was a period in our lives where we'd score, we'd rate the pints in various pubs, and like that's an eight. I don't know. It's a seven to me, and and
That's
we
taking it very seriously.
only once ever did we give it 10. It's a bar that's no longer there. It used to be. It was actually a bar where right by Windmill Lane where you two used to record, and there was a big film. A lot of film production offices would be around there as well. It was called the Dockers, and my brother and I actually gave the Dockers a 10 for their pint.
Wow.
The only one ever.
And they must have been very, very moved and
They
grateful.
were. They were.
Yeah.
You get some truly terrible Guinness in London in some place. It's
Yeah.
true. But Paul, I want to come back to you because obviously, you were involved in the kind of writing of this as well. So I wanted to know what inspired the kind of screenplay and what took the story to Ireland for you? Was it somewhere that you kind of have somewhere you've always wanted to kind of visit? Is it a place you already had a kind of
Yeah,
affinity?
both. The story came afterwards. The inspiration was I just always wanted to make a movie in Ireland, partially because largely because initially because I had seen Local Hero, which is in Scotland, which is, as we explain in the movie, it's an entirely different country. Um, but I just love the idea of an American me being lost in this beautiful. I just loved the idea of it, and I don't know. I've always been drawn to the Ireland, and I thought one of the things that always appealed to me is the melancholy. In film and in literature, it's like there's a deep melancholy, and there's also a great joy and a great open-heartedness, and it's like in that combination. Then you add the beauty of it. It's like I got to go there. So it was entirely about going to Ireland, and what took a long time was to figure out what's the story. And so I had this bare bones of an idea that New Yorker, type A personality goes to little town in Ireland, and it doesn't go well. But why? And then I was introduced to, I decided to write it with somebody, and somebody introduced me to the co-writer, Wally, and we just jammed and came up with the idea of, well, what if it's family and they're trying to settle a generations old feud? So you have a noble aspiration and a lot of human obstacles in the way. Like, it's not easy to put, to lay your arms down. And so we thought that's a really fun thing to do. And that's really what you're watching. It's like, we said it's kind of the microcosm of, well, how does the world solve its problems? Like, that's hard. How about a family? Let's see if two guys can't even do it, well, what hope is there for the Middle East or Russia? So let's try and get these two idiots and see if they can come to terms. And it's not easy. And therein is the problem with people.
And Colm, I was going to ask too, because I mean, Paul's completely right. There is something about films and TV set in Ireland that has this there's something so captivating to it. But perhaps it's the kind of the wit and the charm. This is coming from someone who spent a whole day with Colin Farrell today. But there's also just there's also just a great.
That'll do it to you.
There's also such a great aptitude for kind of storytelling, isn't there? What do you think it is as an Irishman that makes kind of Ireland such engaging ground for kind of cinema in your eyes?
Well, I think there's, I mean, we have a long tradition of oral storytelling and literary storytelling, but I think it's partly because of the climate. We don't have a great tradition of visual, of the visual arts, except for the great Jack Yates and people like that, Sean Keating, but. I think it's because of that. I think there was the old Gaelic tradition was very much oral. The poets and all that, they weren't necessarily written down. They were told from generation to generation, and that still kind of exists, somewhere in the subconscious maybe. But I mean that's the only explanation, other than the fact that we like to eat and drink and. That tends to lead to socializing, and that's I think that's where it comes from.
Yeah, and Paul, I was going to ask, you're a New Yorker. Have you ever seen the appeal of a kind of smaller town lifestyle? Has that ever kind of?
Yeah, for sure. And in my head, I think I aspire to that. I'd love to. I grew up in New York. I love New York. I love big cities, but I love. And more, we were talking about this more as you get older. It's like I kind of really love tranquility and quiet, and I could totally see myself. There's a line in the movie where I go, "Oh, I could totally do this." And of course, Colm's character is like, "You don't look like the kind of guy that would do well here." I'm like, no, I could do it. And then we find out I can. Yeah, so I that's part of the appeal, and that's why I wanted to go make a movie in a little town. It's like.
I mean, I've always figured when I've sort of been spoken to actors that I guess kind of traveling through work is such a wonderful kind of perk to what you guys do. Has there ever been a kind of place, but I'll come to you first, Colm, but that's ever been kind of so truly exotic or exciting that work's taken you where you just thought, bloody hell, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've had some great locations. I remember my first time in Budapest was wonderful. Shot a film in Mexico. That was the biggest European flop of all time. It was called Blueberry, and it was like the European Heaven's Gate. They gave Jan Koenen, the young Belgian director, like 50 million euros to go and make a movie, and it didn't turn out great. But it was a great location, and the location out of Mexico and Spain, and then the studio stuff was shot in Paris. So, hey. What's to complain about that,
Yeah, and have either of you ever been reached out to or reached out yourselves to extended family from other parts of the world? Was that something, Paul, in this instance, that came from a place of truth?
I mean, the story didn't come from that, but I have. Yeah, my family has always been very good about or. Burdened by looking up cousins. Oh, you're going there, you have to look up your cousin. He's your fourth cousin twice removed. I go, well, I don't give a shit. It's like, yeah, you got to call him. I was like, okay. but sometimes it's borne fruit. It's like, oh, I'm very close with a guy who's cousin of mine, but I didn't know him, but he's distant cousin, and we have a great friendship now. So, but then I actually found out there was a bit of parallel to this, that I did have my grandfathers, and like literally one got to America and one stayed behind and ended up moving, they got separated. And I went, oh, I didn't know that. I've already written the script, but apparently there are things that are only after the fact have revealed to me. I totally made up this thing, the idea that, oh, I want to be an idiot and I'm going to build a wall so he can't see it and I'm going to ruin his property value. Then I came to find out that that's how Trump got Mar-a-Lago. That she didn't want to sell it to him. He said, well, I'm going to buy the last bit in front of your house and I'm going to put up a wall and then you'll have nothing. And then she sold it to him for pennies. I went, oh, that's as bad as I thought. That's horrible. I was just making it up, but no, he did it. So there you go. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
And just my sort of final question, really, I'll come to both of you on this one. And so it's a bit of a kind of, not to get too deep with a final question, but I'm such a big fan of both of your guys' work. You've both had such decorated careers with such a host of incredible credits to both of your names. Some of my favorite kind of characters and projects you've both been kind of involved in. I'll come to you first, Colm. Yeah, do you ever find yourself looking back? Are you kind of nostalgic, and not to get, like I said, too deep, but do you ever feel a kind of sense of pride at what you've achieved in your work?
Not yet. Maybe there will be a time for that. No, I actually had a conversation quite recently with. I have a place in Dublin as well, and the guy who does the gardener is a wonderful old guy, Joe Lang. He's a master gardener. The house is right next to the National Botanic Gardens in Dublin, and he was a senior gardener in there for years. And I sit and chat with Joe sometimes when I'm there, and he actually said, he started asking me questions about, where I was going, where I'd come from, what I was doing, blah, blah, blah. And he just turned to me and said, Jesus Christ, Colin, he says, what a life you have. And I'm like, what do you mean, And he was just marveling. And I kind of struck me that, well, yeah, I suppose it's not so bad. And, the life is good. But I guess, yeah, it's very hard to be objective, about your own stuff, your own work, your own life, and I certainly haven't got to the stage yet where I'm looking back nostalgically. Really, I mean, there's certainly films I've loved doing and people I've loved working with, including this one. And I look back on the shooting of this as a marvelous time in my life, but not an overall kind of. Retrospective, if you like. I'm not quite ready for that yet.
How about you, Paul? So you can't avoid my profound final question.
No, I feel, I think Colm speaks for me as well. There are certainly things I look back and go, that was okay. You know what? I like the way that scene played. And, gee, that was funny. That was good. And more than enough places I go, oh, I would like to take another shot at that one. Even this movie, which was, this was, I was telling my son, my whole family was with me, and my younger son was a PA on it, and we were just talking this morning because we're having a premiere tonight. And, he said, this is the end of that journey. He said, that was really like the best summer of my life. I went, it was the best summer of my life, and I've had more summers than you. It was a really wonderful experience. Having said that, and I couldn't be more thrilled with how the film's come out, and we watched it with a big crowd the other night. It was like they all loved it. Having said that, I still watch and go, I would have taken 12 seconds out of that, and I would have snicked that, and I would have, and I know that's just the price of doing business, that you never really rest and stop trying to make things better. But it's weird because I don't feel really that ambitious. And people go, oh, gee, you're doing so many things. You wrote a book, I go, yeah, but I didn't mean to. This is the only thing I meant to do. I mean, literally, my to-do list was make Ireland movie. That's it. I didn't have, and then along the way, if somebody goes, what do you think of doing this TV show? Like, oh, that would be fun. Or you want to help me write this book? Like, oh, that would be fun. So I don't really make plans or have goals. And what was so joyful about this, besides that it came out well and it was such a joy to make, but it was literally my goal. That was all I wanted to do, was make this movie. So it is quite rewarding, frankly, to see, as on the eve of it coming out, and seeing, as far as we can tell, everybody who's seen it really responds positively to it, laughs and is moved and gets what we were trying to say, albeit in a comedy.
There's a lot to admire. I hope that, well, thank you so much for speaking to me both, guys, and I hope
Thank you, Stefan.
the premiere goes well tonight.
Thanks, so.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey, you guys!
Hey you guys.
Hey, that's what they all say.
Hey you guys.
Hey, you guys!